edition. We've got Thanksgiving. Of course, Thanksgiving in America. We are all Canadians, but we like Thanksgiving in America because we get to watch football. So several games on tap for Thursday. We're going to talk all the games on Thanksgiving as well as the primetime game on Sunday and on Monday. But good to be here with you guys.
Yeah, excited to be back. Everybody's favorite time of year. Who doesn't love a Thursday watching football all day? Me and Noah both, well, all three of us actually work for an American-based company, so everybody's off, and I get paid to watch football, so I'm excited.
It's the best holiday of the year. It truly is. Americans just get Thanksgiving right. It's true.
It's the best. Like, with the people I work with, like, that work in the States, like, they were telling me, like, they have this thing called, like, Blackout Wednesday, where it's before every Thanksgiving, you go out and you just get absolutely obliterated on Wednesday night. And then Thursday you have the day off to watch football, and then Friday usually everybody takes it off, so it just turns into a 5-day weekend. And some people take the Monday, so it's like, damn, you guys are definitely doing it right.
Yeah, this might be the leading night for DUIs in America. I think that everyone. Also, I've heard it's also known as amateur night in America. All the people coming back from college trying to reconnect with some old high school connections they had in their hometowns. But they know how to do it. And I think that a lot of people in Canada that watch sports like the American Thanksgiving better than their own Thanksgiving. But it starts off with Packers and Lions. And do you want to go first, Jake? You're not the actual Packers fan, so I'm curious what you have to say about this one.
Yeah, I'll get mine out of the way. It's going to be super quick. I actually don't like the line. I think 7.5 might be too many points. And I think it's the half point that's throwing me. If I got 7, then probably would take it knowing I could get the push. But I'm going to do something a little unorthodox for the podcast that I haven't done yet this year. I'm actually going to give out a parlay. I'm going to give out Jared Goff over 1.5 touchdowns and Lions money line first half. So that's plus 130. I guess the reason behind this is, again, don't really like the line. The first half spread, I think, was 3.5 or 4, whatever it might have been. Really wasn't feeling that either. It's a primetime game. We know how those go. So I think Goff isn't going to throw 3 interceptions again. I think he's still going to be pushing the ball down the field. With all the weapons they have, Jahmyr Gibbs is finally rolling. David Montgomery is rolling. And I think the running game has been a real strong suit for them. And I think the Packers are going to be super focused on trying to not let those guys get going, because once it gets going, the play action opens up. The passing game is that much more effective. But I think Goff's going to have a field day on this Packers secondary, and I think they should win the first half. But there just wasn't too many things that I really liked. The other thing that I kind of like, but I'm not going to touch just because of David Montgomery has another week back in the offense, was Jahmyr Gibbs anytime. But I'm kind of confident in this. This might be my pick of the week, even though it's a parlay.
I like it. I mean, the parlay is best way to get good odds, and then you kind of avoid that big spread, right? So I like it. And man, I got to first of all give credit to you, Noah, for being on the Dan Campbell and Lions bandwagon all year, because you've been cashing tickets on the Lions. And I was watching something today that pretty much said he's like the winningest coach ATS out of every coach that's ever coached a minimum of 50 games. So like he doesn't just win games, he covers point spreads. But now the only thing is that when he first started coaching the team, they were underdogs cashing point spread tickets, right? Now they're asked to win as favorites. Like when Dan Campbell was coming along, the big question was, well, they're covering spreads, like they're hanging around in games, but they're not winning. Now they're winning games, and you're being asked to win by 8 points. You're not just being asked to win the ball game anymore. But as Jake talked about, Goff had a bad game the last time they met, and the Packers still didn't play well. Packers were dealing with some injuries, and they still are a little bit here. The Lions' defense has kind of fallen off a bit. So at first I was leaning towards the under. Then I kind of started to like the over. But I'm going to stick to a prop. I already told you guys about it off camera, but I like Jordan Love over 19.5 completions. Lions' defense over the last 3 to 4 weeks has certainly slipped compared to how they started off the year. And I understand this is definitely a different defense than the Chargers that Jordan Love looked so good against last week. But I'm worried about the number here. I think it could go either way. Favorites have done well, and the Lions have done well recently. Actually, on Thanksgiving, I want to just focus on Jordan Love taking advantage of kind of having a banged up running back room. him not really running that much himself recently and having to pass the ball a shit ton. So no matter really what the score is, I feel like he'll throw the ball, but I do think our Packers go down early in the game. And if that's the case, he'll have to throw the ball quite a bit. And keeping the ball out of the hands of Jared Goff is important. So little dink and dunk and that kind of stuff where you really add up those completions. And also, to what Jake was saying about the running back room, it's hard to not look at some of the running backs for the Lions because of how bad this Packers team has been against the run. I mean, they've just been getting beat up against the pass. They aren't even a bad defense, but against the run, they have just been absolutely abused. But my best bet for the Packers game will be over 19.5 completions for Jordan Love.
You set me up very well. You set me up very well into my pick. Originally, I was actually heavy on the Lions, even at the 7.5. But thinking about it a lot, the half point, like Jake said, does scare me. So my pick is actually David Montgomery over 66.5 rushing yards. Andrew teed me up perfectly. Packers are 28th in the league against the run. They've always been, the past couple years, they've been bad against the run. It's been brutal watching them because it's so frustrating. Like, I cannot forget that game when they played San Francisco years ago in the NFC Championship. What was it, 158 yards or 200 yards, something crazy without even a running back being touched. So they haven't lost that, right? They haven't lost that ability to, not stop the run. So I really like David Montgomery over 66.5 rushing yards. I think, like, to everybody's picks, though, I like them all. Like, I'm thinking in my head, taking everything in this and parlaying it into something because I like everything that everyone was saying. But yeah, the spreads are one of those things with these, in the division. You said, Detroit's defense is kind of falling off a little bit, but without Aaron Jones being there too, I think the completions is definitely an easy line. But I like David Montgomery over on his rushing yards. David Montgomery's hitting his stride. He used to play on the Bears. He hates the Packers. It's just one of those things. I think he's going to want to have a big day and terrible rush defense on Green Bay. So give me the rushing yards.
I just want to add something too, just looking at the schedule. I was thinking about this the other day, but oddly enough, when you look at the Lions wins, like, they haven't really beat anybody. Like, their big win obviously was Kansas City, but of the good teams they've played, like, they lost to Seattle, they lost to the Ravens, and they also lost to they only lost to those two. But anyways, like, the only other really good team that they've kind of played in the 10 games is the Chargers, and the Chargers have been pretty disappointing. So
bad defense.
It's just it's weird, like, because, like, I'm fully bought in on the Lions too, but when you actually kind of start to look, it's like, all right, like, who have you actually beaten? It's like, you've beaten the Bears, the Chargers, the Raiders, the Buccaneers, the Panthers, the Packers, the Falcons, and the Chiefs. All of those teams minus the Falcons are in the bottom half of the league.
I think it just comes to how they've won a lot of those games too, though. A lot of them have looked pretty good. There's been a couple where they've just kind of gotten the win, and that's kind of the NFL. But a lot of those wins have been pretty handedly winning them, covering spreads. So that's why, like, I just like the look of this team. I also just kind of am using a little bit of my last year, like, looking at them. I think they won, like, 6 of their last 8 or something like that, kind of to close out the season. I just like how they're built. I like Dan Campbell as a coach. I think they're just a really well coached team. I think Jared Goff always has a kind of a chip on his shoulder. So I just like, they have lots of weapons on the offensive side. If that defense can kind of just get it together, I think they're definitely a contending team.
I just want to check one other thing too, because I've noticed in every win that they've had, they've scored at least 20 points.
That's what I was gonna say for like my like response to your statement. There is, like, at least they haven't they haven't really cared about. They haven't played down to their opponent, right?
Yeah, the line's 27.5. That's a little steep for me, but just a quick thought
For a team total.
Yeah. They have scored 20 points in all of their wins, but 27 is a little steep for me against the Packers. But I think I like everything that's been going on here. I'm definitely not betting anything Jordan Love, but I definitely think that could hit. If they go down early, especially, they're going to have to throw the ball. They abandon the run pretty quick lately, especially if they go down. So that should be an easy one. But let's jump into the second game here. Another divisional game. Probably, I would say it has potential to be the worst game out of the three, but it also has potential to be the best game out of the three. It's a very up in the air game, but we got Commanders at Cowboys, or Cowgirls as I like to call them. But I guess I'll lead us off since I'm already talking here. I never know what I'm going to get out of the Commanders. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really bad. Spread's pretty big in this game. We all know Dallas is like kind of that team at home right now. When like they're at home, like they're beating the shit out of teams. So the spread shouldn't scare me, but it does. So I'm actually going to go to 2-player props here. I've been really liking this guy as of late, as much as it pains me to say it, but I think he's kind of something Dallas has been missing for a while. And that's, I'm going to take Jake Ferguson, anytime touchdown scorer. And then I'm also going to take Jake Ferguson over 3.5 receptions. I think Jake is built kind of a reputation with Dak that he's his safety blanket, that he's a guy that he can look for when they need that crucial third down, or, it's 2nd and 7 and they're inside the 20. Like, he's been getting a lot of like crucial looks. And I think that's really important for Dallas, because for a while there, they were kind of just banking on CeeDee Lamb. And when Lamb was getting blanketed, they really didn't trust to go to Brandon Cooks. Like, Brandon Cooks has been coming on a little bit, but those have been in blowout games where it's like you're kind of just trying to spread the ball around to make sure you get it to all your guys. But I really like what Jake Ferguson's been doing this year. He was a very underspoken about tight end going into this year. I don't think anybody expected him to kind of put together the year that he's put together. And I think this is a perfect game for him against a Commanders defense that's gonna struggle, I think. And I think he probably gets in the end zone pretty early. Dak's been looking for him early in games, especially when they're in the red zone, to try and get that lead. And then he can kind of start dinking and dunking to CD and Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup, get everybody else involved. But Jake Ferguson, anytime touchdown scores, plus 160. And then as of right now, his receiving prop is over 3.5 receptions, might go up to 4.5. And that scares me a little bit. But as of right now, that's what I'm going to lock in.
I like him. I think that they haven't adjusted him at all either. So I think the partnership there with Dak and the Commanders, you don't know what you're going to get with them. Ever really. What do you like in this one, Noah?
Mine's a little simpler. I haven't really bet too much on the Cowboys this year because, almost to the Commanders' point, I never fully know what Dallas I'm going to see either. But they usually do beat up on quote unquote bad teams. They kind of play poorly against the better teams of the league. But this is a divisional game, typically a hard one. But I really like Dak Prescott's over in passing yards. It's a high number. It's 278.5. But biggest reasons why I like it is Washington is the worst team in the league against the pass. 30th in the league against for passing yards given up. Dak is also going over that line 3 out of his last 4 games. He's averaging 318 yards a game over those last 4. So it's definitely that he's definitely capable of doing it. And the fact that he's also going up against a team that just can't defend the pass, I think that really bodes well. I mean, look what they gave up to Tommy DeVito last week. Right?
Yeah, shout out Tommy DeVito.
Like this guy.
Shout out to his mom.
Yeah, I mean, this guy looked like a world beater against the Commanders, and nobody knew this guy 3 weeks ago. So I think Dak will do it. And the reason I also even like it too is just picturing how the game will go is I, for some reason, think it will be closer than what a lot of people think as a game. Like, I don't really want to take the Commanders to cover because, again, we don't know. But these interdivisional games just kind of seems like one of those games that Cowboys would just somehow lose or something, and we're going to get some big story the next day. The Cowboys aren't it because the Cowboys are riding this big high. But even when the Cowboys lose, Dak can still put up a lot of passing yards. So
I'm curious to see, and I'll just once I don't know if you know, if someone knows, you would know. What have been like the I guess the trends for the Thanksgiving games in terms of like over-unders? Like, are they usually, because I know a lot of them are divisional games. They try to make it like it's a game that's like means something on a day that means something to a lot of people. But I'm curious to see, because from what I can remember, I always feel like they've been like, no matter who's playing, they're usually pretty close games. And like all of these spreads this week are big.
So from what I've heard, the favorites do well on Thanksgiving. And obviously, it depends on the matchups for all of this. But the night game, shocking. The primetime game or whatever you want to call it. The night game goes under and the earlier games go over. That's that's the history. So obviously that history has nothing to do with all of these teams in particular in the match shots, but that's what I've heard. The public does well during the day, and then they jump in on the favorite and the over in the primetime game and get rocked.
Yeah.
So if you like the favorites, apparently take the early favorites.
Yeah, I don't know the stat on like what time or like the over under, but favorites on Thanksgiving are 46-8 straight up and 36-18 against the spread.
There we go.
So take that as you will.
So the public eats on Thanksgiving.
Typically, yeah. I mean, if you're going for the favorites, then the public does pretty well.
I got one for you though. Dallas Cowboys 1-11 against the spread last 12 Thanksgivings.
Interesting.
So-
Interesting. What do you got?
That's wild. I like over 48 in this one. I mean, you guys.
I teed you up for that so perfectly without even knowing.
Yeah, you did. I was like, does he know what I'm about to say here? But yeah, I mean, look, we can go down the list. We can look at the Commanders giving up 40 against the Bears. We can look at what Tommy DeVito did. We can look at some of the games the Commanders have been involved in. But I still think they have some weapons offensively. Yeah, I think you might have been the guy that actually got first put me on with Scary Terry. Like you were hyping up, I think, before.
I love Scary Terry.
Yeah.
I think if Scary Terry had a better quarterback, he'd be completely differently thought about. Like he wouldn't be an underrated guy.
Completely agree.
And
Yeah.
Sam Howell, this is the thing. I'm not here to dog on the guy because I actually think he's all right. But he's a good example of statistics not really matching how someone's actually been playing. And you and I were going back and forth about Jordan Love last night because his stats aren't that bad, but in key moments, Love's been awful this year. Same thing for Howell. He's gotten a lot of yards piled up in games where they were losing, right? So he's someone that I actually would look towards on his props. I know Noah likes the passing yards for Dak. I think Sam Howell could go over his as well. He had, before last week's kind of slip, he had 3 straight games with at least 300 passing yards. And what's the reason for that? Well, he was down in all of those games, right? So when you look at some quarterbacks, just because they lose in games does not mean they can individually not have a good performance. Dallas 4-1 last 5 games. During those 5 games, averaging 32 point something points per game. That's pretty impressive. People talk about trends with coaches, trends on Thanksgiving, trends with certain teams against losing teams and all that stuff. For me, the only trends I like to look at are coaching trends because coaches, whether it's basketball, hockey, or football, you can kind of know, is this a coach that will keep his foot on the gas pedal? Is it a quarterback that likes to, really rub salt in the wound? What have we learned over the last few weeks with the Cowboys? They love it.
They're going to run it up.
They love it. They do not show any class. Well, maybe I shouldn't say class, but they don't show mercy,
I
right?
think football is one of those sports where it's not like basketball where it's like
Rude.
if you get up 30 points, even if it's in early in the second half, all right, starters are coming out for an extended sit. In football, it's one of those sports where it's I'm going to run it up. And it's not because it has anything to do with the other team. It's because you oftentimes feel like your offense maybe needs those extra reps. And lately, I think since the game against San Francisco, San Francisco shit pumped them. And they were like, well, if people are going to shit pump us, we're going to keep running it up too. We're not giving any mercy. We're not putting in Cooper Rush halfway through the third quarter because we're up 35. Dak's going to play the 3 quarters and then we'll put in Cooper Rush. And the other thing that I really like for that over 2 is, and I kind of thought about the over 2, but I didn't have the stats. I wish I would have known what the stats and the ATS were and the over unders. But Dallas hasn't been able to run the ball this year. And since Dallas hasn't been able to run the ball this year, they have to throw, and they're scoring a lot more and quicker. They don't have these extended drives like when they had with Zeke and Pollard. They were able to grind out, 70 yards drives that lasted 7-8 minutes. It's Dallas is scoring 4 or 5 minute drives on 6-7 plays, forcing 3 and outs, and then all of a sudden they're back down the field scoring again. So
Good point.
I do like the over, and I do think that Washington will be able to put up some points, whether, it's 14, 17, whatever it might be. But I do like that over. I do like the chances of that hitting.
And let's be honest here. When I'm looking to cash that over, in my opinion, it all banks on how the Commanders do. I think the Cowboys are going to get theirs. I'm watching that game. If the Commanders somehow get the first touchdown, I'm feeling great about the over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden they're involved in the game. But if they're kicking field goals early in the game, I'm not happy. But
or even just a quick score in general, right? Like regardless of who it's for, I think when you're on the over, there's no better feeling than like first 2 drives seeing someone get in the end zone. You're like, all right, at least like I can allot some time now to not score. But when you're like halfway through the first quarter and you got no points on the board and you're at like 48 total, you're like, I'm pretty dead unless something
and then
crazy
field goals
starts
aren't acceptable
happening.
anymore.
Yeah. So I'm with you, but I think there'll be a lot of points in this game. But on to the next game. I think the second best game of the week.
I'm pumped.
I think this is a great nightcap. 49ers versus Seahawks. I saw a report today that it looks like Geno's going to play, so we don't have to see Drew Lock's bitch ass fucking throwing the ball. I hate that guy, man. Like, he's got a lot of swag, but guy sucks, man.
It would have been terrible. It would have been an absolute.
They would have murdered him, man. They would have, and I think Geno's still going to struggle too. But I really like this game. Kind of disappointed with the stats I heard about. Good with the stats I've heard, but disappointed when Skinny gave me a little deeper look into the stats about the Sharps usually winning in the night game. But I don't know how you don't take San Francisco -6.5. Like
7.5 now.
7. Fuck. I
got it
like
6.5.
I don't know how you don't take it, man. Like Seahawks have been very up and down. Their defense isn't what it has been the previous 2 seasons. If Geno's hurt, we know that San Francisco definitely has the best D-line in football. Them or the Eagles. So for me, it's just like a bet it and don't think about it twice. We see what the 49ers can do, especially when healthy. Everybody's back. Purdy's kind of found his rhythm again now that he has.
Trent Williams too.
Yeah, and Trent Williams is back too. Purdy's kind of found his rhythm. He has his, underneath guy in Debo. He's still got his like middle to long threat in Ayuk, and he's been getting Kittle a lot more involved over like the last like 4 weeks than like the previous 7 weeks. So I'm all in on the 49ers 6.5, and for me it's just bet it and don't think about it twice.
Yeah, I mean I'm on that as well, like personal bet, definitely on that. That was my first pick coming in here, but I did a little bit more deep dives too, just looking into some stats, and I'm actually taking an interesting one for me because I usually don't take running backs on receiving yards, but I'm taking Christian McCaffrey over 32.5 receiving yards. Reason why is because essentially San Francisco's at home. Seattle's at home. Seattle does play a lot better at home. That's one of the loudest kind of stadiums there is really to play in. And I think Brock Purdy is going to look at a couple different ways to kind of get the ball out. Essentially, he's going to look at a couple different places to get the ball out quickly. Christian McCaffrey, obviously, very, very good dual threat back.
Y'all good?
Oh, yeah, we got someone commenting live right now.
What they say?
I was gonna say what's going on. But yeah, no, I really like Christian McCaffrey's over on receiving. 32.5 is not that hard for him to get. He's gone over that in the last 2 away games he's also had. I think he's like, as much as you could say George Kittle's a safety blanket, I think Christian McCaffrey is definitely Brock Purdy's safety blanket. He's gonna look for a couple dink and dunks. All it takes is one screenplay for this to happen. Like we've seen it a million times with Christian McCaffrey. So I really like that line, and I would probably even pair that with the -6.5.
Yeah, I think too with McCaffrey, he's so diverse, right? So they don't always necessarily have to use a traditional run play. I think I talked about this a couple weeks ago where teams, if they can't run the ball, and I don't think that San Francisco is going to have this trouble with running the ball, but they use screen passes, quick check downs to the running back as a run play. And in Kyle Shanahan's offense, he loves to do that. Every team, he's been an OC for, they've always had that guy that can catch the ball out of the backfield and make that extra play. So surprisingly, 33 seems a little low to me, but I might be on that with you. I'm not going to add it to my board because every time that happens, it just doesn't hit. So I don't want to screw it for you, but I actually really like that pick a lot. You on Seattle?
I'm tempted if I can get 7.5. It's gone from 6.5 to 7.5, back to 7 again. What I actually like is the under, and I know it's prime time. I know it's so cliche, but Noah's been spitting some team rankings stats here as far as passing yards allowed. San Fran just played the 31st, so the second worst team in the league against the pass. That's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So it goes Chargers, Buccaneers, and then what was the team that you said?
Oh, Chargers, Buccaneers, Commanders.
Commanders, yeah. So I mean, they played to me that when I look at this Niners schedule, I think it was favorable to start off the season. I know that they went through a couple game losing streak, had the bye, came out, absolutely kicked the crap out of the Jags. But I think the Seahawks, if they're going to have any sort of hope, it's going to be old Geno Smith. Last week, one of my favorite prop bets to ever make was a completions prop for him. And it wasn't because he was lighting it up downfield, making highlight plays. It was because what you just described for the Kyle Shanahan strategy with pretty much using screen passes for running plays is kind of like what the Seahawks were doing with Kenneth Walker being out. That's going to be even more of a factor. So I think I really like Geno Smith pass completions over, similarly to why I like Jordan Love over, because I'm not as confident in them winning the game, those quarterbacks, but I am confident they're going to have to throw the ball, especially with no Kenneth Walker and the running back room being banged up. I can't see this Seattle team, relying on the run and being in situations where they can't afford to run the ball. But let's not forget that passing the ball a lot does not necessarily mean over, right? It could be short passes. Doesn't have to all be, huge downfield plays. And looking at some of these lines that San Fran's been given over the last few weeks, it hasn't been like these blowout spots. I don't think have been against quality teams. Well, okay, I'm not going to call Seattle a quality team, but it's been against more so like scrubs, like the Rams
minus the Jags.
Yeah, but that was -3.
Yeah,
we're talking like 7.5 now. You know what I mean? We're talking about some other teams that they played to start the year off that are like either within their division or just in general that I just think haven't been as impressive. So you're not asking them just to win the game. I think this, in my opinion, is one of the best ones for a Jake same game parlay. Money line San Fran, pick a touchdown score like you were talking about. Like
that was my favorite.
Like why even, you know what I mean? Also, could I talk you guys into a Niners Lions money line parlay or teaser? Because I feel like that might be the best teaser tomorrow of just getting those teams down. The problem is whenever I bet on an underdog, I like to have any sort of shot of thinking that they might win. If it's around 6 points, I think that I was once told if you bet a dog that's 6 points or less, you should think they're going to have some chance of winning the game. And that's why I don't think I can get to the window, and I'll stick with probably just the Geno Smith completions prop because I'm not sure they can actually win the game. They might hang around. So I told you, if I can get 7.5, I like it. Best bet is probably the completions prop, lean towards the under.
I guess my thought.
I hate going against you guys too. So that's how family I am. See, I hear you guys like the 2, and I'm
hey, Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. We're thankful. I guess my thought process is, and I think obviously Seattle has played a lot better at home than on the road. I think them and Atlanta are probably the 2 most interesting teams in terms of splits on home versus away. I guess my thought process is when Purdy has all his guys, they're unstoppable. Like regardless of who they're playing, what's going on, like they're unstoppable. They're really tough to beat and they're really tough to hang around with. And I think with Seattle, Charbonnet is okay. Like we haven't seen a lot of him. We've seen him here and there, but Kenneth Walker has been a guy that's kind of been a staple for this offense this year. Not having the ability to run the ball like I think they're going to be able to run the ball really puts a lot of pressure on Geno to make plays. And I think that's when Geno starts to struggle, is when they're down in games or they're down by a bunch and he needs to kind of start clawing them back to get there. And I don't know how well that Seattle offensive line is going to hold up against the defensive line. And I think when you start getting, Geno can run, but I don't think he's a very good, scramble quarterback. Like he's not like, Russ, Lamar, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. Like he can move around, but he would rather be stationary in the pocket and have those clean passing windows. And I don't know if he's going to get that this week. And once Geno's internal clock starts getting going is when he starts to make mistakes and he starts getting sacked a lot. So for me, if the Seahawks can get their running game going, that also lends into the passing game, obviously. Then I think they hang around. But if Geno's strictly having to force the ball into DK and Tyler Lockett, I think it's going to be a long night for Seattle.
I think if Baker Mayfield can march the field back-to-back drives against San Fran, why can't Geno?
I think Baker's been underrated this year. Like if you were to, I think
that's not no. For the record, I'm not even dissing Baker there.
No, but I'm
just putting respect on Geno.
I think personally, Baker's looked better than Geno this year. I think,
but would Geno make those interceptions in the end of the drive?
I think this year, yeah. I think Geno's been susceptible to making bonehead plays.
And I mean, San Francisco ended up covering in that game, didn't they?
Yeah, but Tampa literally drove the field back-to-back plays.
Oh, for sure.
They turned the ball over on downs, and then the next time Baker threw a pick. So that game could have been way different.
Right. The thing that I think about with San Francisco is the major X factor with San Francisco is Trent Williams.
Yeah.
Like the absolute, anyone can say Christian McCaffrey, all these players to me, I think it all starts and goes with Trent Williams' health. And Trent Williams being back, it even showed last week, like Brock Purdy's, I wish I had the actual numbers of what Brock Purdy's stats were with Trent Williams in or out, because every game they lost this year, Trent Williams wasn't playing. And Brock Purdy didn't look the same. Like that tackle position, obviously, super valued in the NFL.
That's why the left tackles are the highest paid offensive linemen, right?
Right. And I just think that with that all being said, like San Francisco's defense really isn't great. Like, so I think Seattle's defense isn't very great. I think San Francisco is going to be able to march the field. I don't think Seattle's fully there in terms of a united attack. They don't really have the same run game. How is Geno's health really? Like he's going to go. They're football players. They'll be fine. But, how is his health really looking? Like, I just think San Francisco's back on that, arguably best team in the NFL trajectory again. And this is kind of like another prove it game to them, to the NFL, to the rest of the people. Like if they can't cover this game, that'll be looked at almost as the same as like, if they just squeak out a win, then it's like, what is San Francisco right now? What are they? They got the win, but are they really that team? It's like how people are talking about the Chiefs right now. Like the Chiefs just lost to the Philly, obviously, but it's more looking at it's like, is their offense really actually able to win another Super Bowl? Their defense is great.
But you're not even asked, like you could have a great performance from the Niners and them win by 6 points. You're asking for them to win by 8. That's the difference. Like within like a team having a good game versus a team covering the point spread.
For sure.
Right?
I got them at winning at 7.
Oh, at 7. Okay. All right.
But if
we're doing the show tonight. We're doing the show.
Yeah. If you got me at 7.5, then that's when I get scared. So there you go.
7's the push. No one's making a bet for a push though either, right?
I'm not worried. Like,
what's your score line? Like, I know it's off the top of your head, but like
honestly, the way Seattle's played this year, regardless if it's at home or away, like they've looked shaky. Like they've looked shaky throughout the entire year. Like I wouldn't be surprised if it was like a 30-17 game. Like Seattle puts up, 2 touchdowns and a field goal, like respectable, but San Francisco just kind of has their way with them on the other side of the ball. And I think with San Francisco, when they don't have a team that can line up with them on either side of like the offensive or defensive line, they're going to dominate that game. If your defensive line can't go toe-to-toe with their offensive line, you're in trouble. And if your offensive line can't go toe-to-toe with San Francisco's defensive line, you're in trouble. And I think that's how Kyle Shanahan's team's built this year. Both sides of the ball, the offensive and defensive line are really, really good. And that's something that Seattle struggled at this year is they don't have the ability to really get to the quarterback. And they also give up a lot of hits on Geno. And I think the more you start hitting Geno, the harder it becomes for him to perform. And for me, that's just a recipe for, a 2-touchdown score, like our 2-touchdown win. Like I could very well be wrong and eating my words, but I'm just thinking about it in the sense of it's going to be a battle of the trenches. And I think Seattle's not equipped to have that type of game against San Francisco.
I'm curious, Jake, you're not, I'm not saying you'd be biased, Noah, so I'll get your thoughts, but you're not a Packers fan. What would be your thoughts? Which is more likely to be an upset? Packers winning or Seattle winning?
Probably the Packers.
That's more likely, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think the Packers have I've talked my shit about the Packers. I think if Jordan Love just gets it together, like they're a decent team. Like they're not a bad team this year. Like obviously their run defense is pretty abysmal, but on any given Sunday, like you can get that together. It's not like it's one of those things where I think the Lions and the Packers, despite their records, are closer than Seattle and San Francisco from what I've seen of late.
Yeah, I think I put it like this: is I think San Francisco's the better football team than Detroit. Like I think San Francisco's better than Detroit, even though I've been on Detroit for a while. Like I just think San Francisco's proven it over a longer period of time, and they just have so many weapons. It's a great question because like it is a hard one to say because like I would probably think Seattle might be a better football team than the Packers right now. So it's like, that goes into it, but I could see the Packers winning more than I could see Seattle winning this game. Just because,
and again, we could be wrong.
Yeah, for sure.
Put it this way, I would take the Niners laying the points against the Packers, but I would probably lean towards the Seahawks
covering
Detroit. Against the Niners.
Oh, sorry.
Like okay. I'd prefer out of the two. If you gave me the same point spread, Packers against Niners, Seahawks against Niners, I would trust the Seahawks more.
Well, it really is the same spread. They're both 7.5, right?
But obviously the matchup's different, the rush defense, all this and that. But I would rather switch and have Detroit as a favorite over Seattle, and I would take that, and then take what I mean. Like I don't know. I'm just more confident that Seattle can hang around, and I'm a Packers fan. But
yeah, I guess that's why they play the games, right?
Why they play the game.
That's why we gamble. But we've obviously spent a lot of time on that game. But I think that's obviously the best game of the primetime games and the Thursday game. So we didn't discuss doing the Black Friday game, so I'll make this super quick. Dolphins played Jets on the Black Friday. Lots of football this week, thank God. Quickly. Raheem Mostert, anytime touchdown scorer against the Jets, -110. Haven't seen a price like this against the Jets in a very long... haven't seen a price like this for Raheem Mostert to get in the end zone in a very long time. I know the Jets' defense is really good. Their defensive line's really good. Their secondary is really good. If they had another quarterback minus Zach Wilson, they're a shoo-in for a Super Bowl contender, I think. But I think the way that the Dolphins are able to move the football, you're basically just asking Tua to get them inside the 5-yard line and just turn around and hand the ball off once and kind of hope Mostert gets in. So just at that price where I haven't seen Mostert at -110 in a long time, I kind of like it. I know the defense is strong. Their D-line's really good, but I'm more looking at it's more of an opportunistic pick where I feel like I haven't seen a price like this in a while on Mostert. So I'm just going to take Mostert -110 and just kind of hope they get inside the red zone and he's able to punch one in for me.
That'll be a good prop game. I'll be honest, I've got nothing on that one yet, so I'll ride with you, Jake. Do you have anything on that one, Noah? Or?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Give me Tim Boyle over 166.5 passing yards.
Jeez, all right.
Look, this is only all gut. There's clearly no stats I can point to on this. I'm picturing it as the fire, like when a coach gets fired and you go with the interim coach, you have to bet on the team that gets the interim coach. Mm-hmm. This is what I feel like for this Jets game. This is like one of those like interim games where, man, everybody on the Jets hated Zach Wilson. Oh my, you could just tell that players hated Zach Wilson. Like there was balls being thrown out there and like, some of them were even good, but players just weren't even catching them. Like there was a bunch to Allen Lazard, and people could say what they want about Allen Lazard. I don't think he's the best receiver in the league by any means, but definitely some drops out there that I was like, man, this guy's just not even in tune, doesn't even want to catch the ball because like they just hated Zach Wilson. The fans hated him. Everyone hated this guy. So I feel like everyone's going to come out guns blazing because these players are going to want this win, right? These players are going to want Tim Boyle to play well because they don't want to deal with Zach Wilson again. Like
I think you're right. I like that angle, honestly.
And like it's only 166.5. And I know the Jets offense has been abysmal, but like they're going to have to throw, right? Because like we know Miami's offense is going to score even with the Jets defense. Like I think Mostert to score a touchdown is a lock too. Like I think that's a great pick. Like I would ride that as well. But seeing 166.5, it's like I think these players are going to come out. I think they're going to want Tim Boyle to be their quarterback because they just don't want to deal with. I think it's just anyone but Zach Wilson mentality right now. Like that didn't have to be Tim Boyle. It could have been Drew Lock. Could have been anybody. Throw anyone in this situation, I would probably take that over. So that's what I'm going to go with. Could eat my words, but
just look at the BYU highlights from Zach Wilson. There was during a Mickey Mouse pandemic year, and the New York Jets scouts fell for it. Let's be honest here. The difference between Mac Jones and Zach Wilson is that Zach Wilson actually has weapons and can't throw to them.
Zach Wilson sucks. Like he sucks.
That's the difference, though. He actually has weapons. I agree with Noah. They're going to go out there and actually ball out for him and be like, we don't want Wilson back anymore.
You know how I feel about Mac Jones, so we won't get into that debate.
Mac Jones sucks too.
I just think people compare those two players, but like one team actually has weapons. And
I
one
would
team
rather
doesn't.
Mac Jones over Zach Wilson, though. Yeah,
I think they both equally suck.
I think
I would honestly rather Tommy DeVito than either of those guys. Tommy
You're hopping
DeVito's
on the
a winner.
wagon.
But we'll jump into the next game here. Sunday nighter could be a barn burner. Could be an absolute barn burner. Definitely a top 3 game this weekend. Has potential to be the game of the weekend, depending on what goes on. We got Ravens at Chargers. This game's a hard game to get a read on because I think initially when I first looked at the game and kind of looked around and thought about my own personal biases or thoughts on the game and what I thought was going to happen, I really leaned towards the over. But then I can't bet an over primetime. Like I can't do that to myself anymore. Like it's been so bad this year. Like it's just been a blind under every primetime game, and they've just been whacking. So I'm just going with the under 46.5. I think the Ravens defense is
48 now.
Even friggin' better. Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. You could tell that I got my picks in pretty
premium. You're getting that.
Yeah,
Chargers
I've had my
premium.
picks in a little early, so happy to see those lines moving in my direction. But I think the Ravens top 2, 3, 4 defense in the NFL, they can really put it together. I think the Chargers are very hit or miss. They can definitely put up a lot of points, but they can also struggle late into games, and then they start to score those kind of like garbage touchdowns. I think the Ravens have also been another interesting split where home performances versus away performances have looked a little shaky at times. And also, this doesn't really lend into the under, but the Ravens have the most blown fourth quarter leads in the NFL right now. I think my thought process is coming into the Chargers, you're going to be looking to control the pace of play. You're going to use Gus Edwards a lot. You're going to use Justice Hill a lot. You're going to use, what's the other dude's name that they've been using since last week? Young guy?
The Ravens?
Yeah. Is it Williams?
I know is Gus.
I know he's number 34. They've been using him a little bit more as of late.
Maybe Williams.
Williams, I know, because I know there's Carry-On Williams with the Rams, but I think they were using this guy the last 2 weeks who's been more of like a gadget running back, but he's been super effective. I could definitely see them going in there and trying to mitigate how many possessions the Chargers have, because the Chargers can score at any point. So I'm going under 46.5. I'm basically banking on the Ravens defense to keep Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler. And I guess that's really it, because everybody else on that offense has kind of been a little bummy this year. Just under wraps, and I'd like a close, 24-17 victory. That's kind of what I'm thinking about.
I'm just going to follow up. I'm on that too. I'm on the under. Yeah, I know prime time, just like Jake said, classic, but it's a really high total. And Chargers are super, super shaky as a whole. Like not even just their defense, I think, is shaky. Like Justin Herbert almost is just kind of, I wouldn't say he's regressed, but he hasn't gone up either. He's just kind of plateaued a little bit, and the team hasn't put enough defensive, like you can say their line's great, which they have a couple big names, but secondary is god awful.
I think in terms of defense, like you can really only point to Khalil Mack this year.
Yeah.
Like for the Chargers, like everybody else, like you could lose and maybe Derwin James because he has the name.
Right.
But other than that, like you could realistically get rid of everybody.
And that's it seems weird to say this bad stuff about the defense because it's like one of those things that would bode better for the over, but Ravens defense is so good that I think that's going to keep it under. I think the Ravens won't have a problem with scoring, but I think they will try to control it a little bit. I think the Chargers maybe get to 17 points. I think they've struggled a lot more than I've ever seen them struggle. I just don't trust them to really be consistent with putting up points. If this was 2 years ago, I'd probably say, oh, this over for sure is going to hit because, offenses were doing better. Lamar in this offense was good, but the defense wasn't fully there for the Ravens, even though they've always been a decent defensive team. But no, I like this under a lot too myself. So I'm right with you.
I'm happy nobody has any conflicting picks. I'm on the first half minus 2.5 for the Ravens. So I just think that with Mark Andrews being out, with the fact that the Ravens are a better first half team, the Chargers are a better second half team, things just kind of add up. And you talked about kind of a new coach theory, a new quarterback theory. There's like also the injured player theory, right? When you get a key player being out, a team rallies around them for the next game, but then you kind of feel the impact on it maybe a couple weeks later when you look back at a key game or a playoff matchup coming up. Not having a guy like Mark Andrews is crucial. Did
we get an injury report on OBJ yet?
I think it's questionable.
Okay.
Yeah, but when you look at a game like this, I mean, it's one of those things where I think right now, as Jake talked about, the Ravens are killing people on the ground and through the air, which I think the Chargers will have trouble with. But I think it's a 7 or 8 game streak at this point. That actually, I think it might be every single quarterback has gone over their passing yard total against the Chargers. So that's a good one. It should have been an absolute bank account play on Jordan Love last week, but you can't be doing that with Jordan Love. That was a bet I ended up on, but yeah, minus 2.5. We don't even need the full game for a winner for me on this one. We'll try and start things off with the Ravens. And it's cool because you mentioned that about the Ravens blowing leads, and the Chargers are a team that always ends up coming back if they do well in a game. So it kind of works well.
Yeah. And we gamble responsibly. FYI.
No bank account plays.
No bank account plays here. Sometimes it's a half bank account play, but that's the cutoff. That is the absolute cutoff. No, I like everybody's plays. I think the Chargers win this. The Ravens win this comfortably, but I think it's just gonna be one of those games where the Chargers struggle to get going in the first half. That lends into your 2.5, and I think that lends into our under. And then second half, maybe we see it get a little bit closer. But again, like you said, Ravens aren't really a second half team. Chargers are. So that kind of bodes well if we get the right amount of points in the first half. If we see like 24 points in the first half, we're probably kind of fucked.
Yeah.
But if we see a low scoring first half, I think we cash this comfortably.
I just think the primetime games have been going under because the first quarter has been slow.
Even with the Chiefs and Eagles, like it was 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. And you were just like, all right, like
it's an under.
These are two teams that can put up points, but doesn't look like it's going to happen. And it really didn't. Like the Chiefs had the best of the Eagles in the first half. Second half, the Eagles had the better of the Chiefs. And that's just kind of how it feels like every primetime game is gone. One team plays well in the first half and doesn't play well in the second half.
Yeah.
I know people that have been making money actually middling some of these primetime games with not just spreads, but totals, like straight up betting the pre-flop under and then finding a good live over. Because it, like you guys are talking about, I mean, the most, how there's that bet you can make which half will be the highest scoring half. Mm-hmm. Maybe we should take a bet on that being the second half in these primetime games, because it seems like the first half is always the one that's quieter. It's not like you really are seeing an explosive first half where the game dies. It's usually a chilled first half where the game picks up, right? So usually it's like even odds.
Yeah. All right. Last game of the slate. Kind of a shitty game after the Monday nighter we had last week with Eagles and Chiefs, but football's football, and I'm here for it because I can gamble on it. So we got Bears at Vikings. Short and sweet. Vikings minus 3.5. I really like what Josh Dobbs has been doing this year with the Cardinals and with the Vikings. I think I posed a question to a couple of friends of mine about, would the Vikings let Kirk Cousins go if Josh Dobbs continues to play well? And I kind of got shut down, but I'm still of the belief that, he's kind of starting to show like, hey, like I could be a quarterback. I could be a starting quarterback on a middle of the road team. Like, I'm not going to be a Super Bowl quarterback, but I'm definitely better than being the Cardinals starting quarterback. And I think he has a lot to prove because he's playing for a starting job next year because Kirk's a free agent. They can bring him back or whatever they want to do with him, franchise tag him, or they can let him walk and save some money and invest that elsewhere. But I have a hard time thinking the Vikings don't cover this at home. Bears are abysmal offense. Like, I don't care how many points they put up on like 1 week or 2 weeks out of the season. They suck.
Let me ask you this. I got to cut you off. Do you think the line is weird?
Oh, the line's super fishy.
Because these days, whenever the line's weird, you got like a 3-8 team or whatever their record is against a team like the Vikings. It's like,
it's super sketchy, but like, I think Vegas, like a lot of people don't believe in Josh Dobbs. Like, I feel like there's been a lot of points at this point in the season where you've looked and Dobbs has been playing well. And, you know, the Cardinals were like, what were they against the Cowboys? They were like 11.5-point underdogs and they won outright. Like, I think it's more so the disrespect on Dobbs and the lack of weapons that he really has. But Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne and TJ Hawkinson have all played really, really well while Justin Jefferson's been out. They obviously haven't been able to get Madison going, but I don't think anyone expected Madison to be that guy once they let go of Delvin Cook. I think as long as the Vikings defense can kind of just keep DJ Moore under wraps, they're fine. Once
he's their only guy.
Dude, once DJ gets going and you're on the other side, you know you're fucked.
Yeah.
If DJ gets going, you're like, all right, well, I'm probably losing this. Sucks to suck, but it is what it is. If one guy is going to beat an entire defense, then I got to live with the consequences. But I like the Vikings. I think they still have a lot to play for. They're battling for a wild card spot. Dobbs is battling for a starting job next year, and I think they just have more to play for at this point. And I really don't think the Bears care if they lose every other game from here on out.
Yeah. No, fair. This is a weird game. I didn't really like the lines too much. I mean, I would lean towards Vikings, if anything, just because I can't bet on the Bears. But I really like one that I haven't. I don't think I've talked about on this podcast yet. But I really like over 2.5 field goals in this game.
Those have been locks for primetime games too. The over on field goals.
It's plus
minus Monday night last week.
Yeah,
but
it's not even 3.5. 2.5 is plus money.
2.5 is plus 100 right now.
Wow.
Those lines don't move until game day.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at this right now and thinking, you know, plus 100 on 2.5 field goals. Like, these are two teams that, and the line is 3.5 for a reason. There's going to be some field goals in this game. Like,
yeah,
just like all primetime games, there's going to be some field goals. Like, these are two teams that will slowly score points by getting field goals. Like, Josh Dobbs is great. He's shown, you know, a lot. He surprised me this year for sure. And like, Justin Jefferson's back. I think they'll both get yards, but I think both teams will flop a few times in the red zone, and it'll be easy pickings for field goals because it's not like either of these teams I think are going to go up by 21 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, start blowing each other out. Like, they both can play. That's why the line's at 3.5. So I just like the 2.5 field goals. Plus 100. I think it's good.
Well, look, field goals are still points, and I like points. I like this primetime game to go over 43.5.
You're really going to do it to
I
yourself.
know sometimes people say the lowest ones go under and the highest ones go over, especially in primetime, but we're getting low here with this one, boys. 43.5. A Bears team that their record does not indicate some of the games they've been involved in. They put up a 30-piece on the Raiders, who aren't that great. They put up, I think, 20-something points against the Lions. They've been respectable. They just do not have a good record. You know what I mean? So they've been hanging around with teams. The Vikings still don't have a great defense. And what Josh Dobbs has brought to the team is that rushing aspect as well, which has helped them get downfield quicker. I mean, you know, Jake, you talk about like utilizing running backs as kind of like just short pass catchers. Really, that's what Kirk Cousins had to do because he doesn't run the ball himself. But now having Josh Dobbs, I really have noticed that the drives for the Vikings have become a lot faster. And it's not just been because, you know, huge throws. It's just been them getting down the field faster. So I'll go the over, guys. Cubs. Bears and Vikings.
Hey, don't do that to me. It is not baseball season yet. Do not fucking do that to me. I have plenty more sports to watch. before I dive back
I can't believe I just said that.
to the dreaded baseball season. But quick shout out to our boy Ox watching the stream here. Just got a little text of a picture of us. So shout out Ox watching that live. I hope you're tailing everything but the Packers.
Come on.
He's a Packers fan too, so he's gonna be he's gonna be in on the Packers, and it's gonna be a disappointing day for you guys on Thursday. But
God, I hope we win now so bad.
I'm
Old take
I hope I
exposed.
lose all my bets just so the Packers win.
respectfully, I'm gonna spend so much money tomorrow. I'm so excited for tomorrow, boys. Responsibly and respectfully to my bank account. We're gonna have a good day tomorrow. I like everybody's picks this week, and I know
Comment below what you're betting.
I know we I feel like we say that a lot to be nice to each other. Oh, I like your bet. I like your bet. We don't really want to argue
No
too much
hate.
about anyone's picks, but I do like everybody's picks this week.
Except
So
for Andrew's Seattle one. What the
yeah,
fuck?
well, if he takes that, that's
I'm
whatever.
fading the boys. Let's go.
That makes no sense.
And even the prime time over there as for the Monday nighter, like the logic makes sense, right? And every game that's prime
stop
time
being
can't,
nice. We
can't
shared
be,
a look.
No, but I was gonna say like not every game can go under the rest of the year for prime time. Like something's gotta hit, and if there was gonna be a game like this
Bears
would be
game,
it.
you
Like
know?
it would be a Bears game where you're like, they're not gonna put up any points, and then all of a sudden the game's like friggin' like 30-27, and you're just like, well, sucks to be on the under.
Yeah.
But no, this was an exciting podcast. We like the Thursday football. I'm gonna love the Friday football. Plenty of games on Sunday. If you're a smart man, Eagles -3.5. Didn't give it out because we didn't have enough slots. Eagles -3.5. Bills suck. Josh Allen's overrated. Toughest part of our schedule. We're 4-0. They're gonna get demolished.
Yikes.
No more picks.
Okay.
We're all
No more
good.
picks. We're no
All
more
All right,
picks.
guys. Comment below what you're betting on. We're trying out some live streams now. We're gonna get these up quicker. And that was on me. I was the one uploading them late, so we're getting them live
Hey,
now. and-
team effort, team
No.
effort, team
Last one
effort.
was definitely my fault. I thought I put it in. Yeah, last one was 100% my fault. Don't do that to yourself.
But yeah, we're pumped. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, guys. Oh, I thought you were gonna close it out.
Oh well, I guess we're still.
well, you know,
Well, I guess we're still live. That's boys aren't used to live streaming, but
Kapow.
for the We All Gamble podcast, sponsored by Mayflower Sports. Make sure you check us out on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I think this is even going up on Twitch on McGinnis Picks. That's Andrew's personal Twitch, so you can check it out there too if you're a Twitch person. But for We All Gamble podcast, I'm Jacob, Andrew, Noah. We'll meet you back here